Hi, welcome. In this video, we'll be exploring ensuring you're doing things right when delivering change. We'll assume that you already have covered the other side of the coin and have the necessary processes and data to assure you're doing the right things. So, what do you need to do to ensure you are doing things right, and how do we operationalize it? The first thing you'll need is a clear understanding of what good looks like. Without it, what are you governing or assuring against? There are two major components to that, and let's go through them. You need a clear set of SMART business outcomes. If you aren't familiar with that acronym, it stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Let's have a quick look at a sample from an internet service provider client. I'm not going to go through them now, but I'm sure you'll see when you look at this at your own leisure later that they fit the acronym. The second part of understanding what good looks like is to have a target state for your technology, driven by and linked back to your business strategy or your business outcomes. This is often referred to as your beacon on the hill or North Star. In our view, it has three components. The first is a target state for your solutions, and here's an example. It depicts what solutions, new and retained, are required to deliver on your business outcomes, and critically, what capabilities there are to support. Looks scary at first glance, I know, but it's actually quite a simple concept. The diagram with the solutions overlaid onto it is referred to as a business capability model. It's your business on a page. Every capability you need to deliver your products and services and run your organization is on this page. In these 10 minutes, I don't have time to explain the whole concept or model to you, but by way of an example. The top of this model are channel management capabilities. The capabilities enable you to interact with everyone outside your organization. Think digital, phone, paper, social media, etc. The second component is your target state architecture. How the solutions are going to work together. This is an example for a power distribution company, and the stars in the diagram are the link between this target state and the business strategy. Finally, for target state, you'll need a tool to communicate the target state and critically to enable storytelling, and this is an example of it here. Okay, now we have a clear understanding of what we're assuring against. How do we operationalize it? This is what is actually meant by architecture governance, and it also has two components. The first is a set of rules or principles that you need to be followed if your target state is to be achieved. This shouldn't be obvious or cliches like we'll minimize the total cost of ownership of IT. I mean, really, find me an organization that's trying to maximize it. Minimizing total cost of ownership is and should be a valid outcome of delivering the target state, but it's not a principle. It'd be the equivalent of passing a law in the government that says we'll reduce the human impact on climate. It's not enforceable. Here's an example of a true architecture principle for a bank we worked with: channel independence. No business logic or data in your channel solutions. You can have this one for free, by the way. It's a principle for all digitally transformed organizations. The structure here is important, and note the link to the business outcomes. I mentioned omni-channel experience. Without enforcing this principle, that cannot be achieved, nor the other business outcomes listed. Now we have the principles. How do we enforce them? We need a police force and a courts, basically. The Westminster system of government is a good analogy here. While it's far from perfect, it's, let's call it, the least worst system we've come up with so far. The police force, checking for breaches to the principles, is an ICT-led body, but it cannot authorize breaches of the principles, the legislation in this analogy. The courts, on the other hand, are a business-led body, and this is the only body that can approve an exemption to a principle, as by definition, that means compromising on the outcomes in the target state. Recording these permitted exemptions to the principles also creates or maintains a register of what is typically called tech debt. But in our view, that term should be abolished. It's enterprise debt. The whole organization wears the consequences after all. We also strongly recommend, by the way, that the court is not a new governance body, but an extension of the terms of reference for an existing body. Let's look at an example of this working in practice from when this was introduced at a bank in Australia. And it relates to the same principle I showed you earlier, channel independence. Shortly after the three elements of architecture governance were implemented at this organization, this bank, one of the developers working for an external company told the business sponsor for the new delivery that he'd be able to save $50K in 2 weeks if he didn't have to adhere to this principle. The business sponsor said, great, what do I have to do to obtain any permission to do so? As I don't even understand what it means. He followed the process and took it to the courts to ask for an exemption. But we didn't discuss the principle. Only was he willing to forego the outcomes, the ones listed here. He said, oh, hang on, the very next place I intend to take this is a smartphone after the browser version. So no thanks, we'll do it right the first time. And that's what get by linking back to the outcomes. To finish off, what if we did nothing? Why bother? Time for another analogy and hopefully a fun story to end this video. The Winchester House story, as we call it. Sarah Winchester, the granddaughter of the inventor of the Winchester rifle, believed that the ghosts of everyone who was shot by her grandfather's rifles were out to get her. So based on the dreams, or I guess more accurately nightmares, she had the night before, she'd wake up with different instructions for the builders. Oh, they tried to come down the chimney last night. Please close that off. She had no vision for what the house should look like at the end. No North Star, no target state if you like. The result is a world-class tourist attraction, but not a functioning house. And it cost $5.5 million in 1890s dollars, about 500 million today, or a third of the family fortune. And they still hadn't got a working house or anywhere to live at the end. Here's some pictures for you to look at later. By contrast, let's look at Mount Stuart's house. It was built at the same time as Winchester House, but cheaper and quicker, but was designed by an architect with a clear vision set by the owner, the Earl of Bute, a clear target state. It's also a world-class tourist attraction, but a well-functioning house at the same time, that the family still lives in today. It's the first house in the world to have an indoor heated swimming pool, lift, first house to have electricity throughout. Again, here's some more pictures for you to look at later. I know which one I'd prefer to end up living with after spending $500 million. Finally, which one of these would you prefer? You won't end up with the right-hand side by accident. And it's not doesn't just look prettier. The left-hand side change is expensive and takes a long time, and innovation is virtually impossible. The right-hand side is built for change and to support innovation. The bottom left-hand diagram is a real architecture diagram for an organization in 1999. At the time was the world's largest electronics retailer. They went from that to Chapter 11 bankruptcy in 4 years. Why? They couldn't react to the arrival of the internet. Without a target state and architecture governance, you will just build tomorrow's legacy and end up right back where you started. Thank you for listening. I hope it was of interest and of value to you. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and I hope you'll find all of our videos of interest to you. Thank you.